Hello, good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily. Well, yeah, we're coming to you live from Abuja studios. I'm Chamberlain. So
it's a beautiful Friday morning from here. It's not Lagos today. It's the nation's capital, Abuja.
I hope I didn't say Lagos.
No, you said Abuja. I'm Kayode Okikilo. You're welcome.
Well, yes, indeed. Wow, what a difference 24 hours can indeed make. And, well, you know, a lot of you already know that. Yesterday, we were invited by the NBC, our regulators, over some interviews we had with the governor of Benue State and Commodore Kunle Olaume, security. He said that he's had a 35-year career in the security circle in the country, and there were certain things that we needed to just rub minds about, and how things turned out. So, but there were lots of questions and inquiry from all and sundry concerning what exactly the situation is, what is going on, what did they hear. It's amazing how news travels these days, and there was a lot of inquiry, and rightly so. People just wanted to know what's going on, how are things playing out, and so there were so many things that just went through the experiences we had and how Nigerians are responding to a lot of things, and some things that needed to be corrected in terms of word that was really out there. So we were invited, we were not arrested. Yeah. So much as we do appreciate the concern that a lot of people did show, it was huge, and it was quite humbling, and it was an experience that there were just so many things, really, quite a lot.
Oh yeah, what a day it was, really. And like you said, we're really grateful for that show of concern, show of support. And for me, what stood out was the fact that a lot of people saw Nigeria, the project, this nation, as something that we all need to rally around and sort it out. And that for me was huge. It was huge. I mean, I saw beyond just the show of support and care for us. I saw beyond that. I saw that a lot of people were thinking, so Nigeria, what happens? What happens in the next few months? How do we ensure that things get better? And that for me was a sign of greater things to come. And I'm really grateful. The goal is a nation that works for all of us, a nation that we're all proud of. And as journalists, we'll all continue to contribute our bit to ensuring that Nigeria fulfills purpose. Nigeria takes its place, its rightful place in the Committee of Nations. But yes, as Chamberlain said, we were not arrested. We were invited. And after we were done with the meeting, we left and we headed over to our place of rest. And here we are today, coming to you live from Abuja.
Yeah, and, sometimes I just use what I think could be, the closest analogy or scenario to paint a picture. That's why I use sports and football. It's a global sport, so a lot of people can relate to football, and Nigerians can relate a lot with football. You know how it is that if Nigeria is playing the match and then there's a coach, irrespective of the kind of experience or qualification the coach has,
you become a coach as a Nigerian.
Everybody knows. They just want to ensure that, look, because ultimately they all want victory for Nigeria. They want our flag to be hoisted and flying high. And that was why, from what we saw yesterday, just as Kayode said, so many things that we gleaned from a lot of what transpired yesterday, part of which is that, look, the thing is, many of you want this country to take its pride of place in the Committee of Nations. Now, we may not agree to do things the same way, and there's nothing wrong with that, because it's supposed to be a democracy. Ideas have got to contend, but we don't need to forget that whatever approach you decide to adopt, we have to have a country, and we need to keep working together to achieve our goals. What they say, eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. Our colleagues, journalists across board, we can't thank them all enough. We can't thank you enough, much as in trying to ask questions about what's happening, how could things have happened this way. Look, but part of the theories of communication. When you have third-party information, you put some of those things out there, so channel noise may come into play at some point in time. So just technical jargon. But as they say, this too shall pass. So and we always like to say, God bless you, or God bless Nigeria, we'll keep doing what we have to do as professionally possible as we can. So we thank you all once again for the love, the concern that you all showed, and it does show us that together we can indeed build a country that everybody will be proud of, and we need to keep working towards that. All right, that's it. We'll just take you through how the dailies are reflecting what is going on. Let's start with the Guardian newspaper this morning, shall we? And if you take a look at the front page of the Guardian today, surprise. Yeah, that's what it says. Surprise, economy gains highest quarterly growth since 2015. There you go. That is the front page of the Guardian newspaper here today. A host of riders, as a matter of fact. Buhari lowers GDP's 5.01% growth in Q2 2021. Economists dismiss figures as reflection of last year's deep dive. Growth needs to be sustained before 2023 election slows economy down, says Riwane. Impact on citizens' welfare matters most, Yusuf insists. Transport growth is first sign of recovering economy. Experts see more potential in telecom, calls for better policies. And then this one. Harry replaces Kale as head of NBS Statistician General. That's a final shot on all these writers.
Because the figures came, and then the announcement followed, as it were. So definitely it would make news, and a lot of people have commended him. That's the outgoing head of MBS for changing some things, trying to review the way a lot of things have been calculated in the past, and a lot of changes were made, definitely. So I think you say you went out on a high?
Well, the jury's out there. Who knows? And that's the thing with some of these things.
Yeah.
Well, even though they tell you statistics and data don't lie, but this has got to do with his performance, and so who knows? So it's up to you.
Well, the high I meant is the 5% high.
Oh, okay, the 5% high.
Oh, yeah.
Well, who knows? Who knows? It all depends. Perhaps it could also depend on the kind of events that will unfold in the next couple, how many quarters more.
Yeah.
Depending on the policies that they put in place. And then at the bottom strip right there, in new twists, court restores Secondus as PDP chairman. PDP governors insist on October convention, silent on Kebbi court order. NEC meets tomorrow to endorse zoning convention committee. And then you see Atiku explains long absence from PDP meetings. NWP has adopted October as end of our tenure, says erstwhile chairman. So there you go. So quite a lot on the front page of the Guardian here today. We'll leave you to just go ahead, make your pick, and do what you will. That's the Guardian today.
We'll take a look at Daily Trust, and with this one, I'll deviate from the norm. I will not start with the lead. I'll start with the pictures on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. And the pictures you see show the abducted pupils, not students, pupils, to show that the children, young children, the abducted pupils of Tegina regaining their freedom after 88 days. That's almost 3 months. That's like a term of school. So they essentially spend a term of school in captivity. What they say, life harbors vacuum. So if they were not in school, they were in some other type of school, learning some other type of things, and you wonder how much work we have to do to reverse what may have happened. But the writer says bandits collect 68 million naira ransom and bikes.
Wow.
It's a page 6 read of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. You can see the children. I just wonder what's going through their minds right now. Well, the lead story is Nigeria's economy expands as GDP hits 5.01%. Growth highest in 7 years. ICT, trade, travels lead in reversing COVID-19 setbacks. Lagos Abuja chambers call for tax relief. But let us know what you think really about this. As Chimbali said, about figures don't lie. So let's know how you have, how you have fared in this period under review. Yeah, the GDP figures and then your personal figures as well. Let's hear from you. So send us mails. Would really love to take them. It's on page 5. 44 years after, NNPC announces 287 billion naira profit after tax. It's on page 20. A couple of other stories you see on the front page. There's sports as well on the back page of the Daily Trust newspaper.
Oh.
Yeah, there's sports.
Really?
Friday sports, right?
Oh.
Yeah. Real Madrid increased bid from Mbappe to 170 million euros.
Oh.
Imagine parents looking at their children and thinking, you shall play football.
Are you just not going to get to 200 at this rate?
But of course, it doesn't get all of that, right? So
that is crazy.
But yeah, that's Daily Trust for you.
He's not even 25. Okay, well, take a look at blueprints. That's the next one we've got for you here. Nigeria's 5.01% GDP growth excites Buhari. And you see a host of riders as well. Non-oil sector rises to 6.74%, ICT 17.92%. Trade, ICT, transportation, electricity, agriculture, major drivers. President praises economic sustainability plan. So there you go. That's blueprint this morning.
Well, next up is Nigeria News Direct with Nigeria's GDP as a big story. Nigeria's GDP grows by 5.01% in Q2, highest in 6 years. 7 years, 6 years. Hey, 6 and not half a dozen this time. 6 and perfect. That's correct. There's a difference, clearly. Buhari hails managers of economy for hard work, commitment. Growth signals gradual normalization of Nigeria's economy. Expert. COVID-19 third wave, rise in insecurity, others threat to GDP growth. Who's saying that? LCCI. And Professor Ajibola has this: Nigerians are yet to feel the growth impacts. Different angles to that one. You find it on page 2. There's the NNPC story as well on top of the nameplate. And the PDP story, Kebbi Court reinstates Secondus as PDP national chairman. But there's something you may have missed. Of course, we covered that. Security, things are not getting better. Now, that statement is credited to the Sultan of Sokoto. Well, there was a meeting yesterday, and we'll be giving you a lot of insight into that particular one. But let's leave it there for Nigeria News Direct.
Well, on to Vanguard. Plateau attack, injured, helpless, as blood scarcity hits hospitals. Wow. Emergency wards, mortuaries saturated with victims. NMA will continue to have recurrence unless there's justice. That's ascribed to Lalong. The Commissioner for Information alluded to a similar narrative yesterday as well, whilst we had him on the program. But here you see another writer says, those behind crisis resident in other states. No one should be above the law, Sultan tells FG. Tasks security agencies to demystify unknown gunmen attacking communities. So there you go. That is enough to shelf phraseology these days.
Because come to think of it, right? The previous writer that said the attackers are from neighboring states, which goes to show that at least the identity is known. There's some intelligence regarding that. So
questions about security, policing.
So usually when you hear intelligence like that or information like that, you ask, what are you doing with what you know so far? I mean, if we know that much, at least we're not calling them unknown gunmen this time around, thankfully. What have we done?
Well, in terms of what's being done, the next writer here reads, urges President Buhari to convoke chair national confab as Can president condemns ethnic religious coloration of Jos massacre. Buhari working to leaving behind safe, prosperous nation in 2023, SGF assures. ACF condemns killings on the plateau. So, well, that is a handful already. So we might as well just, let you go ahead and take a look at the rest yourself. Now, Vanguard has a lot of items on sports. World Cup qualifiers. Raw expects good start for Eagles. I hope the Eagles will roar to victory when they have that first victory.
That'll look weird though, an eagle roaring. Wouldn't that look weird?
Oh, sorry. That's the Eagles. Okay, the team.
I know it's wordplay, it's okay.
Well, the team, whatever adjective, just get them to victory.
What the Eagles
will be permissible.
They squawk or what?
Well, can soar to victory whichever way. Another Real Madrid story is also there. Real Madrid make second Mbappe bid worth, look at that, 145 million euros. Is it euros or pounds now?
The euros.
Wow. 145. Whoa, Chelsea's stronger with Lukaku, says Liverpool's goalkeeper.
I wonder what
a match that is going to be. What a match.
What was there an excitement to your voice when you saw Chelsea though?
Well, he said it's stronger. They're going to be stronger. In fact, they're stronger with
Okay, not because of any ties.
No,
or
no ties.
affiliations.
Sports ties.
Okay.
I have sporting ties. And sport is good actually for your health.
All right. Okay, New Telegraph is next. Leads with that Islamia school abduction story. Bandits release over 70 out of 136 pupils after 89 days in captivity. Freed children conveyed in 6 buses with military cover. At least something to rejoice over. It's a good one. It's been a long time coming, but good news nonetheless. It's page 3. But what happens next is another big story. There's a secondary story. Drama as PDP governors endorse NWC's decision. I've been reinstated, says Chair. Says October convention sacrosanct. And Atiku says, my long absence not deliberate. More details on page 4. And you see, 44 years after, NNPC declares 287 billion naira profits. Records being broken, first with the GDP figures, now with NNPC.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I had a lot of people tell me when last you heard NNPC declare profit. Just tell me.
So clearly something has been done right.
Wow. It's interesting.
So, I think there's an explanation of how, I believe, how cost adjustments moved NNPC to profitability. You might want to find more on that. And an update on Hush Puppy, or something related to Hush Puppy. SIP on Kerry submits report to IGP. So all eyes on IGP, as it were, for the outcome of that report. It's on page 6. The report card is out. That's the New Telegraph.
Well, take a look at Leadership Friday next. After 89 days in bandits' den, Islamia pupils regained freedom. Parents meet pupils in Kaduna community. Search continues for abducted army major. So, sometimes of course it can be a good feeling. The families of those in these kind of situations are seeing all sorts of items being circulated, in social media, as it were.
So they were kidnapped in Niger, and they were found in Kaduna. Is that what the report says?
The
parents in Kaduna.
No, this is search continues for abducted army major.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And then the other right is troops kill 43 terrorists, capture commander. PNB orders deployment of 100 special forces in Zamfara. Catholic bishops, Northern Christian elders suggest way forward. Yeah, always good to proffer solutions to things. Just beneath that one, PDP crisis, another court reinstates Secondus as national chairman. Party insists on October national convention. There you go. As they all do, the more, so just go ahead. But that is Leadership Friday today.
Well, Daily Independent leads with Secondus fights back. Court restores him as national chairman. Atiku resurfaces in PDP 24 months after, explains self. But the big one, for me that is, resident doctors vow to continue strike despite court order. And this is big because I imagine thousands, if not millions of Nigerians that need access to healthcare.
Yeah,
public
but
healthcare, and
I just didn't take that. Perhaps I didn't know it was going to be that similar matter mentioned here. In Leadership Friday, there was a story just above that, the lead story, which read, Plateau killings, NARD, as a resident doctors, recalls striking doctors for emergency duty. That with regard to Plateau killing. But here, the next size,
well, I guess they had to make an
is.
exception for that, sort of like a war situation, right? But this is a very sad one. I mean, 3 weeks or more they've been on strike, and I imagine the millions of people that have been turned back over that. You see, expect 3 days heavy rains in Kano, Kaduna, others. NIMET warns, so if you stay in those areas or adjoining areas, you might want to get ready for that. And the hush puppy story is also at the bottom strip of the front page of Daily Independent.
Nigerian Tribune is the next one. Just killings, Red Cross worry over shortage of blood. NMA laments rising number of victims. I mean, this is a matter that, much as they were still trying to see how they could shore up that awareness to the extent that people could be, a lot more forthcoming when it has to do with donating blood. Still, they don't have enough problems to grapple with in that regard. Then you have this shortage. So you just wonder what next to expect. Because you don't want to be in this kind of situation where you require blood transfusion and then this headline. So we hope there is a strategy to ensure that this is addressed. But yeah, that's a lead story on the front page of Nigerian Tribune this morning. Security agencies must identify, prosecute all unknown gunmen. That's from the Sultan, as we highlighted in some of the previous dailies today. And then the riders, all religious leaders inciting the public must be arrested. The second rider says, attack on NDA shows nowhere is safe in Nigeria. There you go. That is Tribune today.
But for the Daily Times, Governor Autumn to presidency is how they start off. Focus on ending insecurity, fix economy instead of attacking me, as Governor Autumn to presidency. And PDP replies presidency is a rider. You, not Benue governor, spreading division, hate. So still those statements flying around. But whether we like it or not, the big issue is still there, which is solving insecurity across the different levels. And I want to believe that everybody has a role to play in this, from the political parties to the state executives at the federal level as well. So we'd like to hear the solutions too. At the bottom strip, you see, you must have respect for sanctity of lives of Nigerians. Catholic bishops tell FG. And just one more, which you already heard. Nigeria's GDP grows by 5.01% in Q2 2021. That's the Daily Times.
That's what News Direct leads with. Nigeria's GDP growth grows by 5.01%. Okay, you've taken that already. All right, so there you go. That is it then. With a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We're back in a moment. Do stay with us.
Government officials, religious and traditional rulers are meeting for the third time this year under the umbrella of the Nigeria Interreligious Council to discuss issues of national security. The past few weeks have seen an upsurge in killings, kidnappings and banditry, especially in the northwest and the northeast, and most recently in Jos, where scores have died in a recent attack. According to the religious leaders, the situation is made even more worrisome as some religious leaders continue to preach hate while intelligence agencies fail to provide prompt information.
Unknown gunmen invaded people's homes. How can they be unknown? Unknown people kill so many people and then nothing is done. Where are our intelligence agencies? Don't we have a proactive intelligence agency that will think ahead of anybody, any criminal trying to do something?
Every form of killing or criminality should attract the response of the government, because life is life. Either in reprisal attacks or otherwise, several attacks had happened again after that of the unfortunate killing of our Muslim brothers. Even yesterday, as you have all seen in the news, August 25, 2021, several people were still killed in Plateau State, which look like reprisal attacks.
The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, and Governor Simon Lalong of Plateau State promised more responsiveness on the part of the government to address the insecurity challenge in the country. However, they want citizens to support their efforts.
Leaders that are fond of making statements that do not in any way bring succor and comfort to our people, but further deepening discord, ought to be cautioned. And I believe that the security operatives listening to me will take that lead and deal with those steps and put in place mechanism for conflict resolution, as well as dealing with instigators of conflict.
If we are not able to expose the criminals within us, then how will government find solutions to some of these problems?
After about 2 hours of deliberations, members of the council then go into a closed-door session. Hopefully, deliberations reached here will help to ameliorate the situation in the country.
Welcome back to Sunrise Idiwo. Yes, we're just following up on the reports that Inter-Religious Council Summit you just watched and heard. We've got Mr. Dennis Amachree, as you may have seen in that welcoming slide. He's a former assistant director with the State Security Service. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. So, nice to do it like this on the other side. You know, well, you heard the report there, the comments of those eminent religious leaders, the Sultan, for instance, asking questions of our security, architecture, intelligence community, of which is, at least you've been there, done that. So what he did ask is this theory about unknown gunmen. Don't we have intelligence? Could you talk to us about some of this? Well, what is it? I mean, those questions that he put out there, I mean, to the layman out there, they will always wonder. There will always be room for improvement. So tell us, you've heard that report. What do you think of what he said?
Thank you for having me. Of course, what all they said there is very true, because these are the problems of the country that we're facing at this time. You know, I think many people don't understand that the whole country is under siege at this time. We might be pointing fingers at the little symptoms that occur, kidnapping, attacks that are coming up. But there are fundamental problems in the country that need to be solved. And of course, the divisiveness is what is even pulling us apart in this country. There was this survey that was carried out recently by on the cohesion in the country, and you find out that only 37% of Nigerians are patriotic. And that is not good enough, because when we start to have all these different kinds of attitude of where we came from, or whether the herdsmen or whether the bandits are from outside the country, or they are unknown gunmen, or, you know, before it was unknown soldier, now we have unknown gunmen. So it is something that we have to put a finger on. And I think the intelligence community should go ahead and do it, because, you see, when these kind of things happen, people are arrested, nobody is prosecuted, or if they are prosecuted, nobody is jailed. Then it becomes a problem whereby we keep on calling names, you know, or apportioning blames to people of what is going on in the country, while we can solve it ourselves.
You know, yesterday, while we were speaking with the Commissioner for Information in Plateau State, he raised some questions and concerns about security, policing, how he thought that there's room for improvement. And those were the concerns that the people had. And I think still do, because he thinks that all of those things, people internalize them and come to a conclusion and act based on that perception. How do you think the intelligence community should approach some of these things? Is there a challenge with, should they look to changing or improving communication, or is it going to be, well, you have to act and then side by side communicating to the people so that they don't leave with the wrong impression that it appears as though people do things and go scot-free?
Well, one thing I know is that the intelligence community is solid in this country. But I think what impedes them in carrying out some of the jobs they want to do is because of politics, politicians. Because, you see, when you mix politics with security, then it becomes a very big problem. And I think personally that if these agencies are independent on their own, they should be able to do a better job. But when they are under the direction of leaders that are not forthcoming, or who don't think seriously about the whole country as a whole, then we have problems, you know. And then, of course, party politics, and of course ethnicity, diversiveness, whereby there are a lot of disgruntlement all over the place. So I think communication will solve it, but it still comes back to the leaders to bring everybody together to talk about it.
I'm yet to truly understand, you know, when you say politics, is it possible for you to cite examples of where you think that politics may have served as a hindrance, for instance, in bringing, you know, people who are committing heinous crimes to book? Because the politicians are not looking good when these crimes happen, and I want to imagine that, you know, they'll at least, if there's anything that they're interested in the next elections, and they want to be able to say they provided security for the people. So can you cite instances where you think that it is politics and politicians' influence and, you know, roadblocks that have prevented the security agencies from doing what they ought to have done in that instance?
Thank you for that question. You see that when security is being executed, you know, it does not know ethnicity, it does not know religion, it does not know which party you belong to. But here there is this separation whereby you remember when PDP was in power, APC was all over them. And then, of course, when APC comes into power, you find the others all over them. And there is nothing good coming out from the opposition parties. And I think that is in fact unpatriotic, because you find out that when something that is happening, our military are fighting. Instead of everybody to get together and say, okay, let's do this. Let's take care of this problem that we have. Instead, people are reading meanings into it, and it's our party. We would have done better. It was few numbers that were killed when our party was there, and stuff like that. Then, of course, think of what is going on now. We have kids that have been in the custody of kidnappers for so many days and weeks, and the whole country is burning. Instead of us to come together and solve this problem, politicians are busy thinking of 2023. I am worried, because if the country burns down, what is going to be the political practice when it comes to 2023?
Well, I'm just thinking, isn't this just a bit convenient to always say the politicians? Let me use this example or analogy. So imagine a doctor who's meant to operate on a patient, and a politician who owns the hospital, or who employed the doctor or surgeon, says, you know what, I don't want you to make the incision this way. This is how I want you to do it. Okay, in fact, I want you to even slice the neck and all. A doctor will clearly say, no, I can't do that. It's not my job. My job is to preserve life and not to take life. So if you're a security agent or the head of a security agency, and it's always convenient to say that, well, the politicians are the ones setting the tone. If they tell us to not do this, we will not do this. Don't you think that's, I don't know, it sounds convenient to me. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think we've discussed this before, and I'm going to repeat it here. That, you see, when you have an intelligence agency or the intelligence community itself in a country, what they are supposed to do is to pursue the national interest, follow the national interest, make sure that everything about the national interest is taken care of. But here, I don't think we have a written out national interest. That ask any Nigerian, what is the national interest of Nigeria today? I don't think anybody will give you a definite definition. So we don't have a national interest. And when we don't have a national interest, then how do the intelligence community operate? They will operate from the bosses, because the law that created them says that they are a department of the presidency. The police reports to the president. The DSS reports to the president. So, whatever the president gives out, or the presidency, is the direction you go. And you can see, in fact, if you look at the history of the intelligence community in Nigeria, it has become one where even when General Babangida came into power, they have to dismantle the Nigerian Security Organization. Because at that time, it was alleged that the organization was becoming very, very dangerous. And then, of course, the present president was, the head of state. And the doors of the detention centers of the NSO were thrown open. And then, of course, it became almost a laughingstock at that time. Then, after that president took over, what happened? He used them more than what Buhari used them for. So you find out that because they are created to be an appendage of the presidency, the president at that time or any time will direct. And then that is, of course, different from, because it might be the manifesto. You remember, the presidents are carrying out the manifestos of their party. And that is not the national interest.
Well, these agencies are creations of law, essentially. I don't think security operatives will call the president or the governor or whoever when they're about to make an arrest and say, we need to make an arrest, there's been a crime here. Do we arrest or not? I imagine that doesn't happen. the creation of law, the law is clear on how they carry about their duties. So they make arrests, they profile, they interrogate, and do all of that, prosecute and the rest. So these things are clear in law. Okay, when it comes to appointments and some other strategic decisions, yes, you can talk about it at that leadership level. But the law is clear. So are you saying that we don't have men in security agencies that can stand up and stand by the law and say, well, this is what the law says, I'm going to follow the law to the letter?
You are a Nigerian, and have you ever heard that, have you ever heard anything called orders from above? And have you heard the situation where somebody was arrested for certain things, some national crimes, security crimes, and, you know, a call will come to let the person go? It has happened in the history of this country. So you find out that it is not a situation where the security agencies are very free to do what they have to do. But if their allegiance is to the Constitution of Nigeria, then you find out that
you were in service.
They will carry out the national interest.
Did you get the question?
No, I didn't get you. Yes, please.
Did that happen while you were in service?
Oh, okay. Phone calls will come and say that you can let somebody go?
Yes.
Oh, well, yeah, you find out that you have to carry out orders because you are not the top of the organization. Even if you are the top of the organization, you can be, somebody above you will call you and say, okay, we don't want to do it like this, we'll do it like this. So that it's not a matter of it does not happen.
Well, when you talk about security agencies beholding to whoever is the president over time, which you say that's what you have seen. Today, for instance, Governor of Plateau State, Samuel Lalong, says that these kind of things will keep happening unless there is justice. He's the number one security person in his state, chief security officer, as they refer to them by the books. He wants something done. Why can't it be done in that state? For instance, CP doing certain things, following or going by the books. Why can't that be done?
Okay, there are two things here. One, they have this exclusive list and non-exclusive lists. I don't know why those lists exist anyway, because one is federal and the other ones are out of there. But again, you find out that in the states themselves, the governors are supposed to be the chief security officers of their state. And now, some of them will claim that, I don't have the power to do what I want to do because, I don't have the fighting forces. And I think that is not true because I have worked in a state. I've been a member of the State Security Council, and the governor is the chairman of that very council. And when he is the chairman, whatever is discussed there will be carried out by all the agencies that are present. It is not a situation where you say, oh, let me go and talk to my IG before I can carry out what is going on. Because even the IGs or even the DGSSS will expect that director to take a decision according to the State Security Council, then inform the headquarters. So it is a situation where you don't claim that you don't have the powers. After all, the security funds that they give to them every month, what is it used for? It's not just for buying vehicles and then giving to security agents. It's for running the security operations of that state.
I want to ask you, I'm sorry to take you back to the issue of, because we're still around the political class anyway, but some people will argue that isn't this because the security agencies themselves are allowing politics infiltrate their own ranks, that there could be divisions. Some other times it is a lack of coordination amongst the security agencies. maybe some loyal to some, political godfathers and others loyal to other political godfathers. And that is what we're saying manifested in the current security situation which we are experiencing. You don't agree?
You're very correct. It happens all the time. Because when there is a political space, people will tend to align with, let's say there's a governor now. He has policemen and DSS people, posted to him. And we've had situations in this country where during elections, the governor will take these people and go down to the polling booths and do all kinds of things, And at that time, well, where do you classify the security people? They become partial. And of course, there was even there are situations where if they go for an election, the governor of the state, the governor actually came out to say this, a governor of a state will go ahead and meet the security people and say, hey, do you have accommodation? Do you have you eaten? And he will give them money. Corrupting the security agents. So that by the time this thing starts, their allegiance is shifted. They are human beings. So these are the kinds of things. If you want to do any kind of operations like that, fund them properly. Let them not be partisan. Let them not be attaching or even, looking up to the governor to do anything for them.
Isn't the question now about how we will now make sure that, all the loyalties of our security agents and agencies lie with the Nigerian state? Isn't that the big question? How do we begin? You made reference to that API report, even though it was about the generality of Nigerians. But I'm sure that amongst the generality of Nigerians, there's also there would also be some reflection of our security agencies right in there. Patriotism is not very high as we speak. How do we begin to reinforce and reinstate and put at the center loyalty to the Nigerian state?
First of all, the security agents are Nigerians too. They go to the same market. Things are very hard. The economy is tight and everything. Fine. But importantly, we have to look at a situation where the loyalty of the security agents is very patriotic and very, very aligned to the national interest or the Nigerian constitution. So it is not a matter of where you start to, because you are in the country, after training, any security agent does not have any other choice than to be patriotic. Because I remember, after we finished our own cadet trainings, we are, in fact, if we were alone anywhere and the national anthem is playing, we stand at attention. Whether there is somebody or not, or in public or in private, we respect our flag. The national symbols don't mean anything again. So you find out that patriotism, we have a national orientation agency, and I don't think they're orienting anybody towards, that patriotic zeal that everybody has. There are other countries where you go and they are proud to tell you that I'm a US citizen. Because he knows if he's kidnapped somewhere in Niger Republic, they will come and get him. But we have people kidnapped in our country and then we have a problem here. So these are the things that have to be done. I think there is supposed to be a deliberate effort in trying to solve these national issues.
And I think it's important to talk about those deliberate efforts. And come to think of it, we have the state, and the people hand over the reins of affairs of the state to certain individuals to govern the state, and by extension, handing over the instrument of states, which security is one of them, to those people who then wield it in the way they like, sometimes for self-preservation. Perhaps that's why you have all of this. But clearly, all of this conversation points to having strong institutions And I recall it was a former president in Africa saying, I mean, we need to have institutions so strong that even if the devil was in charge, it would be difficult to do evil in power, just to paraphrase. So talking about those solutions, as it were, from a security perspective, if people don't have trust, faith in security agencies to do things according to law, to follow through, process and procedures, then what you have is people taking law into their hands. And clearly that does not work for anyone. So if we were to start this step by step, from level to level, what would you say is the first thing we need to do?
I don't know if you remember, when this particular president was in power the first time as a head of state, there was a very common thing that went on there: war against indiscipline. And I can tell you that people restricted themselves to obeying the law. Whether there is anybody on the street or not, you will hardly find any Nigerian that will go by the roadside and start to urinate. And then, of course, people will queue up at the bus stations. So the fundamental issue is that we Nigerians also have to look inwards at ourselves, because we keep on saying it, the Niger style, or this the Nigeria or something. That is very derogatory, because we are taking certain things for granted. The rule of law must hold, because we cannot continue behaving anyhow. We go to a stop sign where there is a red light and you stop, and people behind you are honking and telling you that you must move on, move on. There is nobody, move on. The discipline of, feeling part of society, because we are not wild animals that we can just be running up and down, And then, of course, we have to think seriously of our judicial system, because, you see, that is a major part of government that has disappointed Nigerians. How many kidnappers have we arrested? Have the security agencies arrested? Nobody has been prosecuted, or if they've been prosecuted, we don't hear about it. And then, of course, they are still there until one day they will we all forget and they go away.
Well, let me touch on this before we go to break in the next 2 minutes, perhaps come back to it. And when you talk about the judiciary, we've referenced in the Sultan of Sokoto saying the unknown gunmen need to be they need to be known, as it were, and prosecuted, and so people will know who these unknown gunmen are. And I'd like to find out from the intelligence and security perspective, the tags that are given, the names that are given. So you have unknown gunmen, you have bandits, then you have the terrorists, sometimes you have kidnappers, different tags thrown around. How does that come to play in the process of prosecution, interrogation, essentially handling a case? So if you hear unknown gunmen, how would security agencies handle it? If you hear bandits, how would you handle it? If you hear terrorists, how will they be handled?
A terrorist like in Boko Haram, a bandit like in Zamfara and Kaduna State, or even an ordinary kidnapper like people that were kidnapping in Lagos. All of them are terrorists, because what they act is what we are talking about. The act of terrorizing people, of making people to fear. So these are all terrorists, especially the bandits. We don't want to call them bandits or, what they are doing is terrorism. That's what they are doing. So it is we should be very clear about that. And then, of course, address them like that. And if they want to prosecute them. Mention their names. Because there is no reason, just like the Sultan has said, it is high time we know these unknown guys, these unknown elements that are running around in this society, disturbing us, attacking our citadel of military training. These people cannot be unknown, and then we should be able to get them by now.
All right, Mr. Amachree, just give us a moment. We'll be back.
this juncture.
Nigerian and Cameroonian officials under one roof to deliberate on trans-border security issues affecting the two countries. It's the 8th time the two countries will be meeting since the establishment of the Cameroon-Nigeria Trans-Border Security Committee in February 2012, aimed at finding lasting solutions to the lingering problem of terrorism, banditry, arms smuggling, among other criminal activities, mostly along their common border areas. The Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Zubairu Dada, says the collaboration between the two countries have been yielding results, but warns that there are still threats and it's not time to let down guard.
Let me strongly advocate that we sustain our bilateral security framework in order to defeat terrorism in the sub-region, particularly with the emergence of terrorist groups such as ISWAP.
We must continue to work in order to meet the objectives assigned to this committee in Article 3. That is, to intensify cooperation with regards to trans-border security between our two countries, evaluate the security situation at our common borders, propose measures which should be, so that these issues should be tackled properly.
It's time for the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Mungono, to speak, and he makes no haste to warn secessionist groups in Nigeria planning to form alliances with secessionist groups in Cameroon.
Another emerging concern is the attempt by secessionist groups in Nigeria to form alliances with secessionist groups in Cameroon. We will work closely together to ensure that any real or perceived challenge or attempt to form any alliances between secessionist groups in Nigeria and Cameroon are decisively dealt with.
Nigeria and Cameroon shares a common border of about 2,000 kilometers, which makes the relationship between the two countries very germane, especially in the face of rising security threats. Hopefully, in the next 3 days of this meeting, delegates will be able to profile solution to these arrays of security threats which beset development in the two countries. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Social cohesion is all about functionalism. It is the extent to which people in society are bound together, integrated, and share common values. In the context of nationhood, it helps us understand what makes us Nigerians. And that's the reason for this social cohesion dialogue.
If Lord Lugard had foreseen these things, if he had foreseen the rise of a black nation, capable by the sheer size and quality of its population by naturally dominating its space, if Lord Lugard had foreseen these things, he would never have amalgamated the North and South to create one country.
This social cohesion survey took into consideration 10 key indicators, among which are identity, in which 49% of Nigerians are disappointed in the country. 26% of Nigerians trust the Buhari administration. 74% of Nigerians believe there are people above the law. 63% of Nigerians score the government poor in its efforts to tackle corruption.
Nigeria has failed to explain its challenges, from Boko Haram to the raging cases of banditry and farmers' elders crisis. There is no national narrative. In the absence of national narrative, people provide their own narratives, which are often divisive. The problem is to understand it and explain it. A problem understood, explained, and collectively owned is a problem half solved.
The Vice President calls out identity politics and restates the need to oppose all seeking to gain from Nigeria's disintegration.
We must recognize the ways in which we perpetuate institutional discrimination and cause people to see their identities as weapons for procuring opportunity, often at the expense of others. We see this whenever Nigerians are denied opportunity on the basis of their state of origin or because they are non-indigents. The classification of Nigerians as indigents and non-indigents is a form of apartheid and contradicts our declared aspirations towards equality and unity.
A resonating thought among all speakers at today's event is the fact that Nigerians do not hate each other. True Nigerians believe in their potential and are ever hopeful. The political will, however, to ensure that this cohesion is achieved is what is the crux of the matter. Criminals should be treated as criminals, and the victims of such criminal acts be given the closure that they need for the country to develop. Kayla Magwa, Channels Television News.
Welcome back, Mr. Amachree. One wonders, those kind of reports, I mean, they had very interesting conversation there, but you just kind of ask, I mean, just as the Sultan was asking there, don't we have proactive intelligence? He said he's a military man, he knows what he's talking about. In this case, for instance, what do you think we must be seen to be or we must do so that we're seen to be walking the talks, for instance, the kinds that took place at that social cohesion survey?
I personally think that we are very reactive to whatever is happening. If we are very proactive in what is happening, I think even the bandits or whoever they are going to be on edge, because you come to the NDA, kill some people, kidnap some people, and then you go away, and then you comfortably left, and then went to wherever you are hiding, and then start calling for ransom to be paid to you. You know, that means that they've been allowed the space, because I would expect those people to be hunted down. You know, let them be right behind them, so that they will never relax. And then, of course, it is not a rocket science. We need to be on our toes in dealing with these kind of things.
Well, you know, we also looked through a number of submissions. For instance, the governor of Plateau State talking about the kind of solutions, the things, the gaps, the lapses that he's seeing that should be addressed. We recently have heard the Sultan address some of those issues. What is your thoughts about how some of these things play out in terms of identifying these people who are doing these things? For instance, I mean, I don't think the press can just put a name or a tag on any group of people if the authorities or security agencies haven't confirmed some of those. So they have a huge responsibility here. Where you were, for instance, in the Secret Service, what kind of role do you think they have in ensuring that this toga of a quote of an unknown gunman is not just used as a facade and then calling them the wrong names, designating them wrongly, and then perhaps the state not acting as they ought to if they were properly designated?
Yes, I think, thank you for that question. You know, in situations like this, what the security organizations usually do is identification. You must identify the risk that you are facing. And then after identifying those risks, then you should be able to mitigate them. But if you don't properly identify them, then of course you won't know what you're dealing with. I think it has taken too long for us to be talking about unknown gunmen. Have they not arrested any of these unknown gunmen to let them be known? You know, so we have to, you know, expose them. If you don't expose them, they continue operating like that because they feel they are getting even stronger by trying out certain supposedly hardened spaces. You know, so I think we have to re-strategize and then, of course, deal with this thing properly. Identify them, you know, and then, of course, mitigate that particular risk that we are facing.
If I could just ask as a follow-up, do we have I imagine we do have, but just to be sure, do we have a crime database in Nigeria where you have the names of people that have committed crimes, basically the profile as you see in other crimes. But also, more importantly, what do we do with that database, if we have?
I know that the DSS has its own database, and of course, what they do with it is their business. They do a lot of things with their database. And then, of course, remember, they are into national security. Then, of course, police also has its own database. You know, I don't know whether it's automated now, because I remember, if you remember what they call CMR, car registration or car registration center or something like that, where all the cars, the data on all cars are listed. Now, all this kind of data should be automated so that even policemen, when they are on patrol or something, should be able to recall quickly on either on a small device in their hand or in their cars. So data, we have a lot of databases in Nigeria, but I don't think whether they are integrated or automated.
It's a big issue. We've seen attempts in the past to try and, will I say, harmonize, that's the word I'm looking for, harmonize all of these databases. And we've also seen stiff resistance on the part of the security agencies who tend to be territorial about what it is that they hold in their custody. I imagine that, some work will be going on in that particular regard. However, I'm very interested in this talk around national cohesion. I imagine that it's also of priority to government. Is the reason why the Vice President will be attending the launch of that particular report. And you heard his words there that sometimes when we elevate this issue of indigenship and ethnicity, it does take the level of apartheid in some instances. It is that serious. So the question is, how do we begin to address this issue in such a way that when a problem occurs in one part of the country, the rest of the country sees it as their problem? For instance, we've had the crisis in the Northeast for a while, and people will argue that it's because the rest of the country perhaps left it to fester or saw it as a problem of the Northeast. Is the reason why we now have what we have in the Northwest. We now see problems in the North Central, and even parts of the Southwest, and even the Southeast had its own challenges. How do we begin to rearrange this narrative in such a way that we begin to see each other truly as Nigerians and brothers and sisters?
I think, thank you for that question, because that is the crux of the Nigerian problem. We don't see ourselves as one Nigeria. We see ourselves either Yoruba, Efik, or Kalabari, or Nupe, or whatever. And that is not what Nigeria is supposed to be. So how do we solve it? I think we have to go back to basics. Go back to basics, because I remember very well, if you go back to Nigeria's history, you find out that earlier, when people were voting, you go to Port Harcourt, you will see people, an Igbo man is a mayor. You go to Lagos, you see other people from other areas living and running for election, and they're existing. But we started, that's why I say that politicians are the ones that created most of this problem. Because when they lose at the center, they go back to the village and they tell their people, they rejected me because I'm a Yoruba man. If I was this and this, they would have taken me. And then that ethnicity now went into our blood system, whereby today, if there is an appointment in the newspapers, the first thing any Nigerian does is to take the paper and mark out how many Hausa people are there, how many Yorubas, how many Igbos, how many, so that they want to know. And at the end of the day, we now deal with that. Oh, all the service chiefs are Hausas, or they are all Northerners. We are not talking of competence anymore. We are now talking ethnicity. Just like the Vice President said, you know, the ethnicity problem we have is almost like an apartheid, because we now start to hate each other. If the person is not from our place, then the person must be an enemy. You know, and then you start to see regional agitations. We want to form our own country in the east. We want to form the one in the west. So all these things start to happen. Caliphate in the northeast, and they keep on dividing the country into pieces. But I can tell you one thing: we are better off being this one Nigeria than the segments that we are planning to be for ourselves.
Let's wind down this one. I mean, all of those issues you've raised, I mean, you've equally highlighted how some security agencies are beholden to certain political office holders, maybe because they were very instrumental to getting them in those positions in one way or the other. Then there are actions being taken by these terrorists who attempt to divide further perhaps the country, and who knows, security agencies as well. But the thing now is, if we don't want to get to that situation where security agencies or these divisions you spoke about will seep into security agencies, that would be disastrous. How do we prevent this?
Because that's another important thing that we have to look at, you know. And I think we have that level of patriotism there among the security agencies where a criminal is a criminal. And we should start looking at it that way. Because Nigerians should not start defining, oh, this man did this, he's from this place, so nothing is going to happen to him. And the security agencies should also. And I think that's why I'm still talking about some level of independence, whereby if they arrest somebody, no matter where he comes from, you know, should be handled properly. So, well, we shouldn't start looking at this and then seeping into the security system where people will start to, you know, align themselves into one area or the other. The important thing in security is patriotism, whereby you don't, you know, you don't see yourself as you're either colorblind or tribal blind, so to say, you know.
All right, then, Mr. Dennis Amachree, former Assistant Director with the State Security Service. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're back in a moment and we'll switch to politics this time, so don't go away.
The two deputy national chairmen of the People's Democratic Party from the North and South are attending this emergency National Working Committee meeting to resolve the recent leadership crisis in the party owing to a court order restraining Prince Uche Secondus from parading himself as the party's national chairman. That development on Monday led to the emergence of the two deputy national chairmen of the party, reason for which this meeting is holding to resolve the deadlock. At the end of the meeting, which held behind closed doors, the National Publicity Secretary told journalists that Mr. Yemi Akinwumi has been accepted to act as the party's national chairman.
We have no faction in the People's Democratic Party. A motion was moved, and Elder Yemi Akinwumi was unanimously approved as the acting chairman of our great party.
At a separate meeting, the PDP Board of Trustees wants members to ensure that the party is united ahead of the 2023 general election.
We have to discuss seriously the state of our party. We have to find ways and means to accept and do the best thing we can to keep this party moving.
Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar notes that the party's ability to manage its internal crisis is an indication that the PDP can manage the nation's challenges.
We have proved to Nigerians that we have that ability to resolve our internal crisis, and therefore the crisis or crises, I don't know what is the plural of crisis, I mean, that is facing this country, from banditry to kidnapping, you know, name it, for God's sake. We have that capacity to resolve all those crises.
The PDP leadership crisis took a new twist on Monday after a court in Port Harcourt ordered that Secondus be restrained as national chairman of the party, just 1 week after the PDP governors and the National Working Committee said they had resolved the crisis.
Welcome back. We're looking into the PDP now, that internal matter within the political party, the recent court judgments, the nominations that were done. So who is where? That's what we will find out from the two gentlemen who are here with us in the studios. Sani Omar, former spokesperson for the PDP Presidential Campaign Council, as well as Silas Onu, who's a member of the PDP. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain. Maokbe. Good morning.
Good morning, Chamberlain, Maokbe, and Okikiolu. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, we're good. We're good. Do you know, it just appeared that they were happening so fast. They had nominated an acting national chairman, then the court decision came thereafter, and the reports this morning was like, well, the party was silent on that court decision. So let me start with you, Mr. Ma. What is current position now? Is the party united on what, the court judgment, or are they sticking with the acting nomination position?
Well, let me say that this crisis had been ongoing for a very long time, but it was like a Cold War. It started manifesting when some members of the National Working Committee, national officers, deputy national officers started resigning. However, it culminated into this situation when a court order was secured in Degema, in Port Harcourt, the River State. That court order, with due respect to the land judge, was not supposed to have been given, even though it's an ex parte order. Because in the PDP constitution, chapter 10 is very clear that the ward, the local government and the state has no power to discipline any NEC member. So how the land judge was convinced to have issued that court order was in itself a mystery. However, with the coming of the court order and in line with the rule of law and natural justice, the party decided that Uche Secondus, who the court order is addressing, should step aside, and the next person who constitutionally is empowered to become the chairman should act in that capacity, and which is the chairman, the deputy chairman South. That is what the constitution says. The deputy chairman South is supposed to act because the chairman is from the South. So the controversy surrounding who becomes the chairman and who, it just emanated because the elder was assumed to be sick and could not discharge the function. However, the elder himself came to the office and testified that he is sick, hale and hearty, and he can actually perform the functions of that office. And before Uche Secondus can return to his position, a court must also issue an order directing him to do so, because in line with the rule of law and natural justice. And so what happened was that before the court order came a little bit late, it came in the evening, while the party held a meeting in the morning and endorsed elder. So today we are going to be seeing Uche Secondus in his office discharging the functions that he was elected to serve over a mandate of 4 years.
What say you, Mr. Ono?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, let me start by emphasizing that the PDP is a strong family, and you will recall that it is a similar situation that led to the disintegration of APC when Adam Oshomole was suspended by his word. The party couldn't hold together anymore. But PDP, even after that, was still together and even stronger. You found two successors jostling for the #1 position out of love for the party, I would say. Now, that has been resolved. The Deputy Chairman South is the acting national chairman. And regarding the judgment that came from Kebbi, one is a bit curious as to what the content of the processes are before that judge. Whether it's an appeal against the decision of a High Court of Rivers State that another High Court reversed, or is a fresh case concerning the position of the national chairmanship of the PDP, both of which I don't think the Kebbi State High Court have jurisdiction. So this tends towards judicial rascality by that judge who gave that order. And also, I'm a bit suspicious of the nature of that judgment, because you recall Kebbi State is an APC state. So I'm beginning to wonder whether there is a hand from the APC government to undermine the party. Now, that was the PDP. Now,
isn't that impugning the integrity of the judiciary?
Well, come on, it's not. It is a judge who sits on appeal over a coordinate court that is even impugning the integrity of the judiciary, because the content of that process must have indicated that a High Court have asked secondus to step aside. For this judge to say he can come back, there must be such a disclosure. So if a judge knows that a High Court have asked someone to step aside pending the determination of a suit, secondus have not been sacked.
Okay, but
he was just asked to step aside. Now that suit in Degama will go on. What if that judgment turns out totally against secondus? What is expected of secondus is to go before that Degama High Court, which I felt he did, and ask for a vacation of that order.
But something that seems to come from both of you gentlemen is that you both disagree with two court judgments that you don't think went the way you think it should have gone. So is this a political thing that if you don't like the way judgment is, you just say no, this is not right?
Now I'm speaking as a lawyer, right? Not just as a member of PDP here. I want to tell you that the judgment, the order by the High Court of Rivers State is still valid and subsisting. The Kebbi High Court can't vacate it.
My point is that the PDP is a registered party that operates everywhere in Nigeria. It has a registered office in every state of the federation. It can be sued and can sue in any part of the federation.
Yeah, but with the judiciary, that's
I'm trying to come to my point. Okay. Now, I'm trying to say that the issue of jurisdiction does not even arise, because is River State a jurisdiction of the PDP only, or is Kebbi State, can Jigawa State, can Nasarawa State?
Not necessarily the jurisdiction, but in terms of the levels of the court. Yeah. I mean, they're courts of coordinate jurisdiction.
Of course, what we are saying is that.
So the question is, do you think that the Kebbi State High Court should have sat on that matter?
I was trying to address some issues, but let me come to this more specifically. Please. Now, court of coordinate jurisdiction, the issues that will arise is whether the issue is a judgment or an ex parte order. That was an ex parte order. They didn't hear the other side. Now, do you go to a court which didn't even give you the benefits?
Okay, we'll continue from that point when we return in this break from both of you, so do stay with us.
We are here to express our displeasure over the incompetent, corrupt, and the bad leadership of Prince Uche Secondos, who misused the opportunity given to him by the masses and the national executive and the board of trustees of the PDP. He has turned the party into his personal affairs. He has sidelined everybody in Wadata Plaza. he has derailed from the objectives and the aims and the constitutional provision of the PDP. That is why we are calling for his immediate resignation as the PDP national chairman. We will continue to remobilize our people to continue with the protests. If you do not resign, there is no any option than to decline our membership of the party, that's the PDP, to look for another political party that will carry the youth and the interests of the Nigerians at heart. The masses are the majority, and we believe the masses are the voice of the voiceless. The governors cannot decide of the majority. The majority are the masses. Minority cannot take a decision. We are the masses of this party. We are the supporters. We are the followers. We are the voters. Our decision is final, not for the governors.
Welcome back to Sunrise. Mr. Mark, could you go ahead and complete your point?
This issue has always been tackled by our land chief justices of the Federation over time. That ex parte orders that are likely to be reversed, that can create a situation of a reverse order in the future, should not be issued. So that order that was coming from Port Harcourt was an order that ordinarily should not have been given, because clearly in our constitution it is clear that the issues that were laid before his lordship was that, one, his ward has suspended him, his local government has suspended him, and his state has suspended him, and they don't have that power within our constitution. Section 10, chapter 10 of our constitution is very explicit. No member of NEC, and the chairman of the party is the chairman of NEC. You can't suspend him and then go to court and stamp it. It is wrong. So a court with a coordinate jurisdiction can set aside that and say, go on, we have seen it clearly. The other court didn't see it. We have seen it. You have a point. Go ahead and continue your job.
Well, thank you. First of all, every order of court is a judgment, albeit not the final judgment, but it is final on whatever it addresses. So even an ex parte order is a judgment interim, right? So and at the heart of this issue is our territorial jurisdiction. So there is an issue of jurisdiction. This is a matter between Rivers State PDP, not Kebbi State PDP and Secondus. And it is his ward, his local government and his state that took an action that was against his interests. And a judge had given an interim order saying, pending the determination of this suit, stay all activities as national chairman, because this judgment can go one way or the other. What if the judge removes him after all actions taken by him from the date of his suspension will be considered invalid? So it is even in the interest of the party that he steps aside and go back to that same court, get that order vacated, and this argument that the local government, the ward, and the state cannot suspend a NEC member should be canvassed before that court. And nothing says he cannot win. By the time this matter ends, he may emerge victorious, and then he will return if there is still time for him to continue as chairman. However, if events have overtaken his tenure, he will also still be credited as the national chairman of the party from the time he came in till the time the convention will take place. So that is the beauty of this. I don't think the judge in Rivers State should be hounded unnecessarily, because he is still here. What he did is even good for the party. What if tomorrow Secondus wins at the High Court, the state goes to Court of Appeal, and he wins, or they win, and then they go to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court decides and say what the word did was right?
Just as
it will still impact on us.
It would seem, I mean, both of you seem to pitch your tent with the particular order that you feel comfortable with. But I'd like to clear some things you said earlier on. And earlier on, you said the judgment from the Rivers High Court was a mistake, but still the party chose to go along with it. So does that mean the party, knowing fully well that it was a mistake, still went ahead with that particular judgment, obeying it? Because time and again we've seen political parties go to court. I mean, some say they go to shop for court orders and the rest. And it would seem this impugns the integrity of the court. So when you make that statement, are you trying to throw a shade at the judge, at the court, or essentially you're saying from where you stand, from your perspective, you think it is wrong?
No, it's not even about my perspective. It is about if the judge is giving an order that affects a political party, what he is supposed to look at are two things. First, the constitution of that party, and then the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. These are the two issues that should, guide the judgment. Now, in our constitution, like I have actually said severally, that chapter 10 is very clear that because of the incessant ways that our party chairmen were consistently removed. Now look at Oshomole was removed by his ward. Maybe within the APC constitution, it is not there. That clause is not there. But in our party, that clause is there to stop people using ward, local government and state to remove a NEC member.
I think he tried to clear that air, that, I mean, it's for the meantime for him to step aside. But my question particularly is, having this sort of statement about our courts, don't you think that's a direct attack? Because I imagine that the judge considered all of these variables you raised, your constitution, Nigeria's constitution, before coming to that.
You should remember it's an ex parte order.
Right.
An ex parte order does not take the argument of the other side. It only takes the argument of the person who has come before the judge. So the judge is empowered by law to take action based on the arguments canvassed by the person looking for that order. So the person looking for that order cannot and will not go into chapter 10 and tell the judge that they don't have that right. He will look for things that will give him the benefit that the judgment will favor.
I mean, isn't that what lawyers do essentially? But that's why lawyers.
But that's why we are saying it's a one-sided thing. Because it's a one-sided thing, the other party also will look for a way out.
So is that the way?
Well, first of all, interim orders are given to preserve the state of affairs. Yeah, you can call that duress. And I believe this order is even more in the interest of Secondus himself and the PDP. I see no reason why PDP should be worried about the interim order, because if at the end of the day, like I said, the state loses, Secondus' record will still be clean, and he will never be a suspended national chairman. But if that position is upheld, the danger is if the rest is not preserved, all actions taken by Secondus, including the convention that we're talking about, would have been placed on illegality, and everything will be challenged in court. Now, why I am worried about the Kebbi State High Court is because Secondus also have the right to appeal that interim order. Why didn't he go to Court of Appeal to get that set aside? That the order can go, he should have done that. The Court of Appeal would have, I believe, upheld that order.
And that takes me to my next question, which I wanted to raise with you. You talked about the Kebbi State Court saying it's an APC state.
Yeah.
So essentially, it came across as though you were saying, because of that, you doubt the integrity of the court to be, to be essentially not colored by, partisan views and the rest. But for the Rivers High Court, you seem to agree with it. Is that because it's a PDP state and you imagine that state courts basically give judgment based on the parties in power?
Now get me right. I am not for the Rivers judgment or against the Kebbi judgment.
It sounds like you are.
Yeah,
actually.
no. I'm for what is right. Right? We all know that our high courts are largely controlled by politicians. They're not that independent. They are not. If you go to any state high court, whatever the government wants are likely to happen. So, especially in political cases, what happened in Rivers State is an outcome of what the governor wanted. People are just going about it as if they don't. Wike and Secondus have issues. So that was an outcome of what Wike wanted. But when you come to territorial jurisdiction, that state high court has it. They can entertain that matter. Now, those who feel who disagree with Wike also want to show him they have a high court they control. So they went and procured the oil from Kebbi and brought it. And now say we have two judgments.
Can they both be described as what you politicians always call black market injunctions?
Well, this yeah. For this, I think I'd like to call on the NJC that they need to really deal with that judge in Kebbi State. You cannot turn the court into a political theater.
No, not the judge in Rivers.
What of the judge in Rivers, like I said, has territorial jurisdiction. This thing is happening in Rivers State.
Yet you think the judgment may have been tainted by politics?
No. Now, that is a different thing entirely. That judge has the right to hear cases that emanate from River State, from Secondus Ward. Now, the issue he has is whether the judge considered PDP constitution, not whether the judge has jurisdiction. And like I said, this order was given not based on the content of the case, but to preserve the rest. He will now begin hearing. They've not even started hearing. So when he begins hearing, that is when he will hear the argument of both sides. Like he said rightly, the judge heard one side and gave this order, which is correct, which is also acceptable in
the nature of party orders.
It is allowed. The judge has a right to hear one side and issue or grant an ex parte order.
At some point, I can't remember which official of the judiciary had said you have to notify or serve the other party if you're going to give an ex parte.
No.
When it has to do with certain matters.
Well, it's actually how do I say, discretional. The judges have a wide discretion in this kind of issues, right? So a judge may look at the content of that case and say it's highly contentious, so you must notify the other party. But a situation where maybe these people argued that we have suspended this man, his continued stay will affect the activity of the party nationwide if he takes any step further.
Okay, so they try to preserve that.
Let him step aside until we finish this case. Now, it seems to me very reasonable, right? It's very reasonable for the judge to say, okay, because I don't want your party to be rocked in crisis, step aside. This is just one person.
But the same way you argue that the judgment in Kebbi might have been unnecessary because they have the option to appeal the case in Rivers.
Yeah.
So don't they equally have the right to appeal this case in Kebbi?
Which the Kebbi one?
Yes.
No. What are they appealing?
Why should they
the question is,
judge?
What are they appealing? Did the Kebbi judge sit on appeal over the Rivers case? He cannot. Did he say that the PDP should disregard the interim order given by the High Court of Rivers State?
No,
I don't think he will say so.
The judge says they should restore Secondus. Ask the chairman.
Now, if you want to restore somebody, you first of all vacate an order, even the Court of Appeal. If the Court of Appeal want to restore him, they'll say, first of all, they'll say, we have vacated this order and reinstate.
So, Mr. Ma, is this a problem?
He hasn't done that.
Number one, he has rightly captured it and said that states have control over the judiciary. And so since he has said that, it is very clear then that Wike had unfettered access to the judge and he has directed the judge to do his bidding. Now, can you go back to that same judge whom Wike has control over?
But it's not very clear. That's from his own.
No, that's what he said. Well,
but I also say
we were trying to say something here. Now, you can't go back there and start looking for that judgment to be vacated. This is not a matter, it's an ex parte order. It's not a matter that is, you have lost and then you are proceeding to a court of appeal.
So it's the right thing to do, to go to another.
You can go to another court. Well, we have witnessed it. Now, in the case of Makarfi versus Alimodu Sharif, we have been seeing so many. A court will issue an order in Abuja. Another court will issue an order.
So
in
the
Lagos.
question is,
and the party was also obeying them.
Doesn't that put your party in a bind?
It is the judiciary that should put its house in order, not.
No, but you people approach the judiciary.
Yeah, we approach them, and if we approach a judiciary and they decide to agree with us, it means that they are convinced that what they are doing is in order.
So practically speaking now, I'm wondering how it's going to work today, because here we see Mr. Logbodiyo briefing pressmen after the meeting of your party yesterday, your party members yesterday, on what has been decided and who is now interim chairman. Now, what is going to happen to today? I mean, is it just possible for Mr. Secondos to just walk back to office? What's going to happen to the NWC that he was supposed to be working with if they have since moved beyond that goalpost, so to speak?
Yesterday, when Ologbondio made that declaration, it was in the morning. When he made that declaration, that judgment has not come out. So it still puts Secondos outside the rim of the party. Now, with the new judgment, it has now reinstated him back. And so that statement by Kola Ologbondio is now overtaken by new events. Events have now overtaken that statement. So Secondos is supposed to report back to office. He has been directed by the court to resume his duties.
No, what I'm saying is, yes, indeed, that's what the court is saying. But I'm saying, practically speaking, I mean, there will be what the court has said, and then there will be how it will be carried out.
Writing.
Exactly. How do you think that this will be carried out?
I don't think there is any problem. When the court stopped him, Secondos didn't argue. He didn't go to say, I am above the court, so I must continue. He stepped aside. So now the court has reinstated him. He will go in and say, yes, I have now the power. I am backed by law to come back. So I'm back. I'm coming back.
Okay, so Mr. Ono, did you see any injustice in that in terms of how he was removed initially? Did it feel a little, I mean, because he did point out that your party did put some safeguards in place to ensure that things like this do not happen, because it would seem that he had foreseen that this sort of thing could happen. Do you think that the manner in which he was asked to step aside in the first instance was just?
Well, I would not speak to the justice of the issue. And if it was unjust, he also have a right to pursue justice. But albeit he has to do that properly, right? Like I said, he can challenge even the interim order at the Court of Appeal. He can go before that judge also and ask the judge to vacate it, which I heard he did. He can also follow that case to the end, and he may win. So there is no injustice here yet. The party is not a personal property, right? The party is still running, and it will be suicidal for PDP. It will be suicidal for PDP to begin to say somebody have procured judgment here, we will now reverse what we have done yesterday. Somebody have done this here, because when will it stop?
So
if somebody
Mr.
tries,
cannot resume the
he cannot because the order of the High Court of Rivers State is still subsisting and valid. That case is still ongoing.
So what about the order of the Kebbi High Court?
Kebbi High Court cannot purport. The judge cannot even pretend to say he's vacating that order. He just made a statement. I'm sure when we see the content, it will be clear.
I have the content.
Good. I would have read it before we
can read it here.
You can read the judgment.
The judgment is very clear.
Okay, you can read it. Let us see or hear if that Kebbi judge said the order given by Rivers State High Court is hereby vacated. Secondos is hereby reinstated. Let's see if the judge said that. Can you read it?
What the judge said?
No, read it.
No, I don't want to take time.
What you're saying.
Yes. What the judge said is that there were people who deposed to an affidavit. And in deposing to the affidavit, they raised issues. And those issues, the judge agreed with. And directed that the national chairman should resume his duties.
Let's hear what the issues are in the affidavit. Let's hear what his orders are. Now, if the party accepts this, the point I was trying to make is, if the party accepts, what stop another governor that is against the chairman from also issuing his own high court? And then we keep going.
But there's a legal procedure to reject this, isn't there?
To reject what?
If some people in the party say no, we can't accept
this. There is a principle of election, right? There are two conflicting judgments, and then the party will just weigh. This calls have equal jurisdiction.
So what? That's going to be a political solution?
No. They elect. Which one do we obey? Which one look like will harm us or help us? Right? So they will say, this looks harmful. This looks better. We elect this. This is principle of election. So they will elect to go with the one that will preserve the rest. rather than one that will come and cause more confusion.
Essentially, pick and choose with judgment.
Yeah, because the judiciary have made themselves a laughing stock.
It's quite.
And that is why I say that judge in Kebbi should be sanctioned without delay.
It's quite convenient to blame the court, and I mean, you keep skipping the court in Rivers. He, of course, thinks the court in Rivers has a question to answer. But here's the thing: it's quite convenient to blame the courts, but don't forget, like Chamberlain referenced, the court did not approach you, your party, or members of your party. Members of your party approached the court.
Yes.
So I think it's convenient to blame the court, but you're leaving out the major issue, which is the fact that, on the one hand, you say you're a family. You say all is well, everything is sorted. I recall having an interview with party members, and they say, we're fine, there's no fight, but clearly there are issues. So why would you say all is well in your party? Why would you say you're a family, yet you have members of that family approaching various courts, trying to essentially shop for judgments, as you say, to bring down the party? Why don't you address that issue? Exhaust internal party mechanism, as you say. Why is it hard to do that?
Like I said, this is a bit curious because this conflicting order is coming from an APC state. So, for me, I feel APC is trying to destabilize the PDP. The family is still one, is intact. They met yesterday. There was a BOT meeting, there was NWC
members
meeting.
of the APC.
Well, if somebody want to pull down your house, certainly he will use insiders. It can't come out openly. They will certainly use insiders. I won't be surprised if Secondus, he may be fighting for his right legitimately, but he may not know where help is coming from.
So the PDP can't
the help may be disguised. Let me finish, please. Let me finish. The help may be disguised, right? The help may be disguised, but it's still coming from the wrong place. Now, regarding who approaches the court, if you follow my trend, I'm not excusing what is going on in River State, but when a judge acts within the framework of his power and jurisdiction, right? I like to wait until the conclusion of the matter. The judge in River State is acting within his jurisdiction. Whether the case before him is right or wrong is not for him to decide until all arguments are taken before he will take a decision, right? But for now, he has given an interim order, which is not to say that he has found Secondus unworthy of remaining as national chairman. He's just saying, just to preserve the integrity of your party. Now, that of Kebbi cannot, he should have asked, why is the chairman, why was he asked to go? Who asked him to go?
But you've not seen details of the chairman.
No. Every judge should inquire.
So how do you know
what led to his removal? Who asked him to leave? These questions must come up. And if they tell him it's the High Court of Rivers, he should decline jurisdiction.
The issue he has been hammering on, that Kebbi State is an APC state, does not even arise. Number one, let me tell you.
What about the issue of abuse of process?
Well, we will come to. Let me address this one, and then I'll come to abuse of process. First, in Kebbi State, we have the chairman of the Northwest Caucus of the PDP, Kabiru Sutenimu Turaki, SAN, is from Kebbi State. We have our former national chairman, who was also the former Board of Trustee chairman, Dr. Bello Haleru, is from Kebbi State. Kebbi State has...
Are you saying they are the ones that find this action?
I'm not saying they have. I'm saying that we have a lot of PDP presence in Kebbi State. So you cannot say because it is because the governor is there. Will the governor direct the judiciary to issue an order?
Big men in state don't control party. The government does.
No, the judge. We have an SAN. The judge cannot.
The Attorney General is from Kebbi.
It doesn't matter
to start calling names.
Yes,
the governor is from Kebbi.
Yeah, the Attorney General is worked under the SAN.
Oh.
So what are you talking about?
So what about the second matter of process?
The process, to me, the issue where he raised the issue of jurisdiction, I think is completely out of it. Because this PDP, like I have already mentioned, is a national party. And this is a national chairman. The national chairman was not elected by River State people. He was elected by the whole PDP in Nigeria. So you cannot limit him to Rivers State.
But you've not addressed the issue of reining your members in.
No, sorry, please.
Because that's quite important, because this is a political party conversation. We can talk about the court all we want, but essentially how you play your politics within your party. Is your house in order?
Sorry, please, let me just make a point, because talking about him being national chairman, you try to nationalize membership, right? Before he became national chairman of the PDP, he was, first of all, a member of PDP. And membership is at the ward, not at national. Every member of a political party, whichever party, your membership is at the ward. That is where you go and register.
So what happens to chapter 10 of your party's procedure?
That is what they will argue in court. Now, the ward have said, we have suspended you as a member of the party. The local government affirmed the suspension. The state affirmed the suspension. They can go and argue. He can bring his argument and say, because I'm a member of NEC and I'm the national chairman, the ward has no power to suspend me. Okay. He can go and make the argument in court.
He's trying to bring a pedestrian argument. And the argument is that because he registered in Rivers. If he registered in Rivers State alone cannot make him national chairman.
That's a different thing.
No, it is not a different thing, because
you must be a member before you qualify to contest for election.
The issue
in the party
before the court was to remove him as a national chairman.
No.
So it is not, you can't dismiss that and say because he's a member. It is his membership has led him to become the national chairman of the party.
Can you be a national chairman without being a
delegates over 5,000 delegates voted for him in Nigeria. Over 5,000 delegates. So how can only about 300 people say they have removed him?
Well, we'll wait and see how the meeting today will go, to see what will happen. I know that we may not be surprised if they pull out a political solution to all of this. Your parties do it a lot.
I'm very confident.
I'm
very confident Mr. Secondus will resume duty today.
And he's also confident that the party will do the same thing.
I think the party will go with the best option,
that's what we always say
to make sure we don't begin to get court orders every day.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for coming on today. Well, we do have some emails, and so we'll just go ahead and take some of them. Yeah.
Indeed, Demola Alalade starts the emails today talking about PDP's internal troubles. It says the internal crisis rocking the PDP is also an indication that majority of the politicians in the country don't have the interests of the nation at heart. Majority of them are running after their individual interests, because if they're truly for the people and ready to serve, they won't have the time to be disagreeing on the leadership of the party. This is not peculiar to the PDP alone, but across the political divide, our politicians should put the nation first before themselves.
Look at this one from Joshua Badong talking about the same matter. He says PDP's internal troubles. PDP is in internal troubles. APC is in the same quagmire. It will interest them to know it's now the end of an era for them. Come 2023, Nigerians will surprise them.
Just like the front page of Guardian. Surprise.
Yeah, real surprise. Because we really haven't seen the inkling of that yet, have we?
Oh, yeah. Now take a look at this one from Daria Jibike. Well, takes a different trajectory on GDP growth this time around. It says GDP growth, but the life of the ordinary citizen doesn't grow. What is the benefit of growth in GDP when it doesn't have meaningful impact on the life of masses? I'm an economist. I need real life growth.
I'm not an economist.
Or rather, I'm not. I skipped the not, forgive me. I'm not an economist. I need real life growth than data growth.
Indeed, isn't that what we all need? Adeleke Adewumi is talking about the cost of living in Nigeria. Says the federal government should look for means to reduce the cost of petroleum products and electricity. These are the two items pushing up the prices of goods and services. The best way to make money is to create value. If business environment prospers, government will get taxes and levies easily. Will they? I mean, he didn't say will they. I'm the one asking that question.
Well, this one is from Ustaz Jibril. He's talking about allegiance of community intelligence. What is our national interest, he asks. We don't have the right institution that can control the whims and caprices of politicians. We need to define our national interest first, he says. I guess that's it.
Well, I guess the national anthem and the pledge can help us define what national interest should be, because oftentimes it always varies depending on through whose lens we're looking at it. But I imagine that the majority of Nigerians recognize national interest when they see it.
Yeah.
So, but it's definitely not too much of a task to now start to redefine what our national ethos should be, what our national values are. But I mean, as I did say, our national anthem and the pledge can indeed lead the way.
Well, who knows? As maybe he said, if the people surprised the PDP and the APC in 2023, we just might begin to get it right. You never can tell. Well, that is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We came to you live from our studios here in Abuja.
And it's always great to have you guys here.
Good to be here as well.
I wish you could stay a week, but who knows? Who knows? I mean, who knows?
You know what?
All you have to do is make a request.
Well, we can't do a political solution. So we'll leave that to the politicians. We'll do a professional solution.
Is feeling very excited.
You can feel it, right? My excitement is palpable.
All right, then. So we'll see you next week from wherever. At least we'll see you next week. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Kairo Kikilu. To have a fantastic weekend.